Good morning once again, everyone. Before we start, let's get to know our judges.
Our first judge is a BSc General Science graduate at Philippine Normal University. Currently, he is a junior high school science teacher and theater arts facilitator at SCS. Let's welcome Mr. Jeffrey Agowili.
Our second judge is considered one of the busiest person in SCS secondary department. He teaches Chinese and is presently the SMA principal. Let's give a round of applause for Mr. Felix Sutanto.
And our third judge and the chairman of the board is considered one of the pillars of the SCS secondary department, known for her tough and passionate love for students, teachers, and the school. She teaches economics and is the SCS school manager. Let's give it up for Miss Vilma Manalo.
Let's now have our first contestant, Reinhard from 10C.
Imagine this. You receive a sudden message from your school. You felt flabbergasted. Did I do anything wrong? Did I forget to pay the school fee? You opened the message. Turns out, the school was stopped for 2 weeks due to a deadly virus outbreak. You felt delighted since the approaching final exams was postponed. Soon, the holiday came to an end, and astonishingly, we had our exams online. Everyone is cheerful about the fact that we have our online school 2 years already. And due to this, some students had enough of it, but on the contrary, some students still want and prefer online school. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. Good morning, I'm Reinhard, I'm a grade 10 student, and I'm your mind open. We are all aware that right now, the world has wanted visitors to coronavirus. As I said earlier, the school, we had online school for 2 years already, and this is because of this virus. And I also mentioned that some students still want and prefer online school. In other words, they cannot move on from online school. And I understand this. I'm a student myself, and I understand what it is. Going back offline is burdensome, especially online school was a great opportunity for us to not study, if you know what I mean. Let me ask you this one question. When you're having a class, do you often pay attention? No, right? Neither do I. I believe you're having some fun behind the screen, playing games or texting your friends. Well, if that's not the case for you, then that's the case for me, because I did that. There's class monitoring in online school, so you can basically do anything you want. Imagine doing this for 2 years straight. Well, you might not bore over the lessons, but do you know what effects it has on your future? It's like learning nothing for 2 years straight, and it's just a waste of money and time. And yes, I'm reminding myself as well. Furthermore, if you have an exam, you don't need to study overnight for the final exam. Google is there to help. Personally, this is the biggest problem with online school. The internet is spoon-feeding you. Even though you put very little effort in studying, your grades will still surge, which doesn't make sense. Now imagine, you study less, you didn't listen to the teachers, but then your grades are very high. This is because you are being too dependent on the internet and not putting effort in your studies. Therefore, if you cheat, you cannot develop your mind and become independent. You can clearly see the convenience of having online school. Therefore, don't wonder why a lot love online school so bad. And because of this, students are struggling as they go back offline. So, what are the solutions to this issue? Number one, be more participant. Maybe in online school, you weren't that participant since you're busy with your own thing there. So this time, it's offline school, you can take your chance and try to be more active. It will make you adapt and get used to offline school again. In a special case, maybe if you're an introvert or a timid kind of person, well, I'm afraid that you need to push yourself through that zone and start being active. In other words, you leave your comfort zone. Before you get to college and later you need to face harder challenges and you need to communicate with more people. Another thing you can do is to focus on your lessons. I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you focus on your lessons, basically the pressure and the stress will not be in the readaptation process of you going back to offline school. But the stress will be in your lessons. For instance, you wake up, you find it difficult to jump out of bed in the morning. But on that day, you realize you got a chemistry exam. So you jump out of bed, you take a quick bath, and off to school. And as you reach school, you browse your notes before the lesson starts. So you see, in this case, the pressure is not you jumping out of bed in the morning, but the stress is the chemistry exam. So if you focus on your lessons, there's basically something that can push you out through the cannot moving on zone. So therefore, don't be afraid to leave your comfort zone, focus on your lessons, and give it a shot. I know these motivational phrases are a dime a dozen. You might have heard of it over and over again, but trust me, if you do this, the result is something that you'll never regret. In addition, students and parents quarrel whether online or offline school is better. But what you need to actually do is just focus. It's just go with the flow. Whether it is online or offline school, it is still a place where you study, it is still a school, and it is still hell. Another, sorry. Therefore, despite the situation, don't let it drag you down. Face the situation with courage and perseverance. Even though school is hell, it is still a stairway to your future, a stairway to your success. So keep in mind your purpose in this place. Use this as motivation. Anyway, as I close, I would like to remind you again that online school has passed. The world is now gradually recovering. We're all back to normal now, and remember to let the past be the past. Let us all move on from online school and just go on what we have right now, which is offline school. Remember, we go to school to gain knowledge, to build our personality, and to nourish our future. I'm Reinhardt, I'm a grade 10 student, and well, I might not be your mind opener, but I'm a friend who wants you to be able to rekindle and go beyond your contemporary time. Thank you.
Next up is Jessica from 10B.
Subjects. So, may I start? Picture this. You are a high school student studying at school, and everything is going well. When suddenly, you heard the news that a pandemic has started. At first, you feel flabbergasted, and you feel quite unusual. But as time passes by, you become more and more used to online classes. In fact, you become so used to classes that you start abusing its advantages. You have a quiz tomorrow? Don't worry, there's Google. You have a final test tomorrow? Don't worry, there's Google too. You need to make a speech tomorrow? Don't worry, just Google a speech maker. Practically everything is provided to you during online classes. Your grades skyrocket and everything is going well. Until offline classes start. Your grades plummet and everything takes a turn for the worse. The Google you used to answer quiz, your final test, and make a speech is now gone, and you're left helpless. Now, your grades are 0, and your parents are not happy about it. That is a true story of a certain man. Even though this is his story, I know some of you can relate to this. Getting good grades during online classes, but having failing grades as offline classes start. Now, you need to wake up earlier, or else you will get caught in traffic. You also need to pay attention to classes, because if you don't, not only will your grades fall, but the teachers will also know that you are not paying attention. You also cannot cheat anymore, because everything is supervised. Eyes here, eyes there, and eyes everywhere. At this point, you might have already given up on school. However, this is not the end for you. There is still time to improve your grades. If you think that it's too late, then you are wrong. There are still 2 terms left for the school year. So start fixing your grades now. Start taking down notes, paying attention to classes, or even watch an Indian tutorial video on a topic that you do not understand. Do everything you can to improve your grades. Sooner or later, your grades will start improving and everything will definitely go well. This, of course, will not happen on day one, but if you just improve your grades little by little every single day, then I doubt that this will be an impossible task for you. After all, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single semester. After this speech, I want all of you to look forward for the next term, feeling enthusiastic, feeling determined, and feeling ready to take on all the challenges you will be facing. Tell yourself that it is not over until you win. Thank you.
Our next contestant, Michelle from grade 12.
Without us noticing, it has been almost 3 years since the pandemic hit us. Many things have happened to us. We have been through a lot of hardships and changes as well. Starting from the quarantine in early 2019, and now that we're back in the late 2022, we're going back to what was before the pandemic, albeit with a few changes and not to what we consider as our new normal. For both students and teachers, this means that we're going back to the face-to-face learning setting, where students can easily talk, socialize with their friends, and teachers can guide the students more effectively. However, this does not mean that for both students and teachers, they're struggling to adjust to the new normal. Back then, in the online classes, I bet the students appeared to be, more behaved because they were only behind the screens and were usually muted. But teachers weren't able to tell if the students are learning anything from the lessons or not. And now, in the new normal, where all students are together in one class, I bet some teachers feel a bit overwhelmed by how different the students behave. I think the teachers here can agree to that. And not only that, but because students can easily interact, because the students can easily interact with their friends, some teachers may have to compete against the students' voices when they're teaching. But of course, like everything else, there is a positive side with this learning setting. With this face-to-face learning setting, teachers are able to guide students more effectively, and teachers are able to tell who's genuinely listening and those who need more assistance. Now, I've been talking about the teachers, right? And now, the students. Students, of course, they also have their own difficulties in their learning as well. Now, as for the students here, raise your hand if you feel like you don't learn much from the online classes. Because honestly, it's the same for me. I don't really remember much the lesson I learned from the online classes, but the things I remember are just the stupid things my friends and I did back then, which is not so useful right now, of course. And this is also, actually not only me, some students are also easily distracted, or maybe they're not used to the learning setting back then. And this is a huge disadvantage for them in the coming years. Now, this is because the lessons that they're studying right now, that they're learning right now, are usually the continuation, or the more advanced level of those things that they learned the previous year. And if you guys don't understand the basics, how else would you understand the more difficult topics? This may result in grade to decline as well. Not only that, but I bet that some students are so used to being alone in their room and have a quiet place to study. But now that they're back at school, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of noise, and some students may feel overwhelmed. Not to mention how the pandemic have influenced and impacted teachers and students' mental health as well. Dread and anxiety are unfortunately becoming more common for us. The fear of being infected and the uneasy feelings of the uncertainty scenarios that we're now in. Not to mention, there's also the change of sleeping schedules. I bet some of you here are used to 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or maybe even not family, stress about grades, and other factors as well. All of these have negative influence on the mental health of the students and teachers as well. Nevertheless, changes will always occur, since without them, there will be no advancement nor progress. And it is up to us whether we choose to accept the challenge of adapting or finding ways to thrive in this condition. For us students, teachers, and even adults around us have been very patient with us because we are still young. But the world will not wait for you to be ready. So, what are you waiting for? It's time for us to quit looking back and start looking forward in order for us to thrive in the future. Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Lionel from 11 Science.
Okay, I'll be starting off my speech with a very famous quote, people agree with this. So, the world doesn't revolve around us, that's obvious. We all need to adapt to the things this world continuously throws at us. In our case, one of the biggest things that has a sizable dent in our lives would be the global pandemic. It forced us to continue our studies online. We spent 3 years studying and going to school in an online fashion. This was surely the way we live our lives, judging by the fact we spent 3 years in isolation. Online classes are a night and day comparison to the face-to-face classes. Most of us were not even listening when the classes were held online. Let's be honest, we were either sleeping or playing our video games. In those 3 years, changes are bound to happen. Changes to yourself and to your friends. They might have a sudden change in their personality, or even their physical appearance. This may come as a shock for some of us. However, as humans, we need to keep adapting. That's the only way we keep moving forward. Start accepting how things are just not in your control. Step out your comfort zone. For the ones that were already friends to begin with before the pandemic even started, it would be easy for you guys to come back to a steady connection with the others. Same can be true for the ones joining the school during or after the pandemic. They'll find it difficult to interact with the long-time learners of the school, amplified with the fact that offline meetings started late in the semester. Most individuals would struggle in this situation. They find it difficult to talk with the people they barely met in the online classes. They don't know how they act in real life, they don't know their full personality, they don't know how your language is supposed to work with them. I'm speaking from experience because you'd expect the students from a school that teaches the English language to understand English, but having some of them prefer English over Bahasa is quite unexpected. The amount of people learning English increases day by day. It's still, in the near future, it's safe to say that English will still be the world's most spoken language. It's taught in many, many schools. It's the first language you would switch to if a foreigner doesn't understand your language. It's basically the most ideal language to learn as a second language. In the near future, important matters will be done with the English language, such as business meetings, agreements, arguments. They'll all be done with English. The more people learning, the thinner the language barrier gets around this world. Traveling will be such a breeze if you don't need to worry about those long, confusing conversations you'd have with the random Chinese dude that usually don't understand each other's language. Speaking English fluently and flawlessly is also kind of flex as a non-native. I know I'm still working on that, and you should be too. You'll impress more people than you expect. That's all that I have to say for today. Thanks for your attention, and that will be me.
like to call on Miss Andre for to give the certificate and token of appreciation to our judges.
Right, thank you, Darren. Thank you also to our dear participants. So we would like to give this certificate of appreciation to Ms. Vilma Manalo, Mr. Humphrey Abkawili, and Mr. Felix Sotando for sharing their invaluable time and expertise as judged during the SCS English Music Festival on December 12, 2022, given this 12th day of December 2022 at Surabaya Cambridge School, signed by yours truly, and Ms. Diana Sotando's school director, and also Ms. Vilma Manalo as the school manager. So we would like to ask our dear judges to stay here in front for the receiving of the certificate and the token and the photo opportunity as well.
That is it for this morning's event. We will see each other at 1 p.m. at the cafeteria for the first ever SCS Idol. Thank you very much.